Hello, I'll be reading Dare to Lead by Brene Brown. Dare to lead, braving the wilderness, rising strong, daring greatly, the gift of imperfection. I thought it was just me. Dare to lead, brave work, tough conversations, whole hearts by Brene Brown. To my friend, Charles Kelly, who would have thought we'd go from waiting tables to selling copies of my first self-published book out of the extra room in your house to working and leading together today? I could have done it. I couldn't have done it without you. A note from Brene. People often ask me if I still get nervous when I speak in public. The answer is yes. I'm always nervous. Experience keeps me from being scared, but I'm still nervous. First, people are offering me their most precious gift, their time. Time is, hands down, our most converted, most and renewable resource. If being on the receiving end of one of life's most valuable gifts fails to leave you with a lump in your throat or butterflies in your stomach, then you're not paying attention. Second, speaking is vulnerable. I don't memorize my lines or have a set shtick that I do verbatim. Effective speaking is about the unpredictable and uncontrollable art of connection. Even though it's just me on stage and possibly 10,000 people sitting in folding chairs in a convention center, I try to look into as many pairs of eyes as I can do. So yes, I'm always nervous. I have a couple of tricks that I've developed over the past several years that help me stay centered. Even though it makes event production teams crazy, I always ask for the stage lights to be at 50%. When they're at 100%, you can't see the audience at all, and I don't like talking into the void. I need to see enough face to know if we're in sync. Are the world, the images pulling us together or pushing us apart? Are they recognizing their experiences in my stories? People make very specific faces when they're hearing something that rings true for them. They nod and smile and sometimes cover their faces with their hands when it's not landing. I get the side tilt and less laughter. I have another trick I use when anxious event organizers trying to encouraging me to up my game by describing the status of the audience members. The organizer might say, "Hey Brene, just so you know, the audience tonight includes top military brass. They mention the high-level corporate leaders, elite members of this or that super special group, the top class ceiling breakers in the world. Or my favorite, these actually are rocket scientists who will probably hate what you're saying, so stick to the data." This strategy is often employed when the audience seems somewhat resistant because they don't know why I'm here, or worst case scenario, they don't know why they've been forced to be there with me. In these cases, my strategy is a take on the classic picture of the audience naked trick. Rather than picturing naked people sitting in auditorium chairs, which just doesn't work for me, I picture people with the armor of their titles, positions, power, or influence. when I spot the woman in the audience who has her lips pursed and her arms tightly folded across her chest. I picture what she looked like in third grade. If I'm hooked by the guy who keeps shaking his head and making comments like, winners aren't weak at work, I try to picture him holding a child or sitting with his therapist. Oh, honestly, sitting with the therapist, I think he should see. Before I go on stage, I whisper the word people 3 or 4 times to myself. People, 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 people. This strategy was born out of desperation a decade ago, back in 2008. When I was born out of desperation back in 2008, when I gave what I consider my first talk to a corporate leadership audience. I had lecture at grand rounds in hospitals and then many behavioral health talks. But the difference between those experiences and even just standing in that green room was palpable. Sorry. I was trying to find a place to set up camp in a room with 20 other speakers. Each of us waiting to be called to do our TED-style 20 minutes talk at this day-long event. When that lonely feeling of not belonging and being out of place started washing over me, I first checked if it was a gender thing, because to date I'm often still the only female speaker backstage. That wasn't it. It was a homesickness, because I was 30 minutes from my house in Houston when I heard the event organizers talking to the audience. I pulled back a small section of the heavy velvet curtains that separated the green room from the auditorium that peeked out. It was like a Brooks Brothers convention rows of mostly men in white shirts and very dark suits. I shut the curtain and started to panic. The guy standing closest to me was a young, super energetic speaker who, you could tell, had never met a stranger. I'm not even sure what he was saying to me when I cut him off in mid-sentence. Oh my god, these are all business people, executives, or FBI agents. He chuckled. Yeah, mate, it's a conference for C-levels. Didn't they tell you that? The blood drained out of my face as I slowly sat down on an empty chair next to me. He explained, CEOs, COOs, CFOs, CMOs, CHROs. All I could think was, there is no way I'm going to tell this guy the truth. He knelt next to me and put his arm over my shoulder. You okay, mate? Maybe it was the Australian accent or the big smile or the name Pete that made this guy instantly trustworthy. But I turned to him and said, they did tell me it was a C-level audience, but I thought that meant down to earth. Like, these are real C-level people, salt to the art, SEA level. Through a huge booming laugh, he said, that's brilliant, you should use that. I looked him in the eye and said, it's not funny. I'm talking about shame and the danger of not believing we're enough. There was a long pause before I added ironically, by the time a woman from Washington, D.C., who was doing her 20 minutes talk on the oil trade, was standing beside us. She looked at me and said, shame, as in emotion? Like I'm ashamed? Before I could even admit it was true, she said, interesting, better you than me, and walked off. I never forget Pete's response. Look out into the audience again. These are people. Just people. And no one talks to them about shame, and every single one of them is in it up to their eyeballs, just like the rest of us. Look at them. They're people. I think either the truth of his advice or the thought of my topic got to him, because he stood up, squeezed my shoulder, and walked away. I quickly pulled out my laptop and searched popular MBA and business terms. Maybe I can put some hard corners of my topic by waving in a little business lingo. Damn, it was like reading old hat, new hat. The Berenstain Bears look into the kids loved when they were little. It's the story of Papa Bear going to the hat store and trying on 50 different hats to replace his old ragged hat. But of course, all of the news hats have issues: too loose, too tight, too heavy, too light. It goes on for pages until it reaches the logical conclusion of keeping the old ugly hat that fits perfectly. I started whispering some of the terms to myself to see if I could pull it off. Long pull item, too tall. Critical pathway, too trafficky. Skip level, too hopscotchy. Incentive, maybe. Incentivize? Wait, what? I call bullshit. You could just add ice to the stuff. Mercifully, my husband Steve called and interrupted by my Brene Bear's business search. How are you? Are you okay? He asked. No, it's a total cluster, I said. After I explained the situation, he was very quiet, using his serious voice, the one reserved for panicked parents calling for medical advice. He's pediatrician, or for me, when I'm losing my mind, he said, Brene, promise me that you will not use any of those dumbass words. I mean it. I was near tears at this point. I whispered a promise, but you should see these people. It's like a funeral, and not a funeral in my family, not a fancy Wranglers and an appropriately somber cowboy hat funeral. It's like a British funeral or a graveside service on the Sopranos. He said, take that guy's advice and look out at the audience again. They're really just people like you and me, like our friends. These are people that you know, right? These are real people with real lives and real problems. Do your thing. He told me he loved me, and we hung up. I stood up and pulled the curtain back one more time. The room was darker, and a speaker was talking from stage. I wanted to see the audience members' faces, but my side view made it tough. Then, like a slow motion scene from a movie, a large bald guy turned to whisper something to the guy sitting next to him, and I saw his face. I gasped and pulled the curtains closed. I know that guy. We got somber around the same time, and we used to go to the same AA meetings in the mid-90s. I couldn't believe it. As I said, they're wondering if I was in the middle of a miracle. My new friend Pete walking up. So he walked up. You doing okay? He asked. I smiled. Yeah, I think so. Just people, right? He patted me on the shoulder and told me what a woman was standing outside the green room door asking to talk to me. I thanked him again and went to check on my visitor. It was my neighbor. At the same time, she was managing partner at a law firm, and she was attending the event with several other partners and a few clients. She told me that she wanted to say hello and wish me luck. I gave her a quick hug, and she went back toward the auditorium doors. I walked across the lobby and stepped outside for some fresh air. She may never know what it meant for me to see her that day. I appreciated the kindness and connection, but it was the simple act of seeing her that made all the difference for me. Yeah. She's a partner in a prestigious law firm, but she's also a daughter who recently moved her mother from assisted living to hospice. She's also a mother and a wife going through a difficult divorce. People. The experience that day was electric. The audience and I were totally in sync and deeply connected. We belly laughed, we cried. The audience leaned so hard to what I was sharing about shame, unattainable expectations, perfection, that I thought they would fall out of their seats. We experienced the surge. Before I went back to school to social work in the early 90s, I was climbing the corporate ladder at a Fortune 10 company. I left that job to study social work, and I didn't think then that I would return to that world, which is in my mind. I was the opposite of what I cared about: courage, connection, and meaning. For the first several years of my doctoral work, I focused on systems, change, management, and organizational environmental scanning. I eventually shifted direction and wrote my dissertation on connection and vulnerability. I never thought I'd return the field of organizational development because I didn't really love it at that time. The talk I gave that day marked a significant turning point in my career. The heartfelt experience I had with the audience made me question whether I had made a mistake by framing two of my interests as mutually exclusive. What would it took? What would it look like to combine courage, connection, and meaning with the world of work? The other weird thing that happened that day resulted in a major shift in my sparkling speaking career. There were several speaking agents at that moment, at that event. After the audience evaluations were shared with the speakers and the agents, I got calls from all of them asking about my career goals. After a couple months of soul searching, I decided to find my way back to the world of leadership, organizational development, but this time with a new focus: people, people, people.